Action.
When you were competing, what were the differences between those who used performance enhancers and those who did not?
There were several differences. The main difference was training frequency, how often a lifter who was using steroids could train. They would train 5 days a week minimum, sometimes 6, because their recuperative abilities are so much better with steroids. They also, because of that, they could make much faster gains. A drug-free lifter, for instance, may take 3 or 4 years before he's really competitive. I would train with steroid lifters that would be maybe in 12 months. They could be very, very competitive and stronger than any drug-free lifter who'd been lifting for years. So, and they would gain much more mass and size. A drug-free lifter, if you gain 10 pounds of muscle mass in a year, that's very difficult to do and stay lean. With a steroid lifter, you could put on 2 and 3 times that commonly, without any problem at all.
Wow. And after winning many competitions in the drug-free competitions, could you have been a contender with the steroid users?
I could have maybe placed. At the best example is that when I won an Oklahoma meet and set records that still stand 12 years later as a drug-free lifter, at that particular meet, if I'd have lifted in the open division, which they don't test for, so we're all the lifters in the open division were steroid users, I think I'd have been, I can't remember, I'd have been 4th or 5th. So I wouldn't have technically placed. The top 3 lifters place. So there were other meets I lifted in, but I'd have been in the top 3, but I never lifted in a meet where I'd have won an open division.
Okay. Would you say that they worked just as hard as you did?
They work really hard. I mean, it's not true that people, it's not like you can just take steroids and grow. You just get fat. Most steroid users I knew worked their tails off. They worked really hard. So it's not something that would just make a lazy guy a great lifter. They train hard, and the benefit again is they can train for 2 hours one day and be back in the gym the next day 100% ready to go. Where if a drug-free lifter would have done that same workout and at the same intensity level, they'd be 2 or 3 days before they're back in the gym.
Okay. And in conclusion, are performance enhancers fair?
No, I mean they're not fair. But and by that I mean, I guess adults can make decisions to do those kind of crazy things that are harmful for them. But they're not fair if you're competing in an honest competition with people who don't use them. I suppose they're fair, using that term loosely, in like a bodybuilding competition, because there's not a single pro bodybuilder who doesn't use steroids. So everybody uses them, so it's an even playing field. But for people who use steroids in sports where they're regulated, you're not supposed to use them, it's illegal, baseball, football, they're not fair, because you're giving yourself a benefit that the guy you're competing against doesn't have. So in those instances, they're not fair. If you're trying to allege that you're competing on a level playing field and you're using them and someone else is not, it's not a level playing field.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, man. My pleasure.